All right, so think about this for a second. What if, in 10 years, maybe even sooner, the smartest AI out there isn't just good at math, but like way better than us at anything we can think of?
It's kind of wild to imagine, right?
Yeah, and then picture this, like city streets packed with robots. Millions, no, billions of them. And some are even like walking around looking like us.
Straight out of a sci-fi movie, you'd think.
Totally. But this is what Elon Musk, the Tesla and SpaceX guy, laid out in this interview on Valuetainment. I don't know if you've seen that channel.
I have, yeah. Patrick Bet David, right. They always have super interesting guests on there.
Definitely. And this conversation with Musk, it was actually with Ted Cruz, believe it or not.
Interesting tearing. So what exactly was Musk saying about this future with super AI and robots everywhere?
Well, that's what we're going to break down in this deep dive, right? We went through the transcript of that whole interview and pulled out the most thought-provoking stuff.
Perfect. So for everyone listening, we're going to take you through the key predictions, the logic behind them, and try to understand what they could actually mean for the world.
Exactly. Because, I mean, if Musk is even half right, things are going to get pretty crazy. Yeah. So where do we even start?
Well, Musk starts with this idea that AI is on the verge of becoming like fundamentally smarter than humans. He calls it cognitive superiority.
So it's not just like AI beating us at chess, which it already does.
Right. He's talking about AI that can tackle any intellectual problem we throw at it, any mental task, and not just keep up with us, but actually outperform the best human minds.
Wow, that's a bit unsettling when you put it like that.
It is a pretty radical idea. I mean, is that even possible in like 10 years? What do you think?
Honestly, it's hard to say. AI is moving so fast, like with image recognition and being able to understand and even generate human language. But to surpass us in everything, I mean, that's a huge leap.
For sure. But then Musk adds another layer to this whole thing. Robots. He predicts there will be billions of humanoid robots out there.
Billions, like walking around.
Yeah. Not just the kind you see in factories, but ones that are designed to interact with us in the real world.
So picture like robots doing our chores, taking care of things, maybe even like hanging out with us.
It's possible. And he talked about their design a little bit, saying it won't necessarily be based on like any specific robot we've seen before. And the cool part, the outer parts, the cosmetics, he said, will be interchangeable.
So like you can have a robot that looks like, I don't know, a famous chef or your favorite athlete.
Exactly. You could customize their appearance to be whatever you want, which raises all sorts of questions like, what would that kind of world even look like with all these robots blending in?
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
But okay, let's switch gears for a second and talk about something a little closer to home. Self-driving cars. Because this is one prediction that feels like it's right around the corner.
Definitely. Musk is very confident on this one. He says all cars will be self-driving within 10 years.
All cars. No more steering wheels, no more driving tests.
That's what he's saying. And think about it. In 5 years, he predicts half of all miles driven will be autonomous. Then in 10 years, it jumps to 90%. That's a lot of change really fast.
That's incredibly fast.
Yeah.
What makes him think this is going to happen so quickly?
Well, you have to remember the pace of technology. You know, in the interview, someone mentioned Moore's Law, which basically says computer power doubles every couple of years. And while that specific trend might be slowing down, the bigger point is that technology often advances exponentially. And we're seeing this in areas like AI and sensors, which are crucial for self-driving cars.
Okay, I see. So potentially super smart AI, billions of robots walking around, and self-driving cars everywhere. What does all of this mean for us regular folks, like for our jobs, for the economy?
It's the big question, right? And Musk doesn't shy away from it. He actually suggests that goods and services will become almost free.
Free? How does that even work?
Well, his logic is that with billions of robots able to produce and do everything, the cost of goods and services would just plummet. Like imagine robots making everything, delivering everything, all super efficiently.
So basically a world where we don't have to work.
It could be a possibility, but it also raises a ton of new questions, like what happens to the meaning of work? How do we find purpose if we don't need to work for basic necessities? It's kind of a philosophical question, but a very real one in this scenario.
Absolutely. And then there's the question that always pops up when you talk about advanced AI and robots, the whole killer robot thing.
Yeah, it's like the elephant in the room.
Exactly. I mean, is that something we should actually be worried about?
Musk put the odds of, and I quote, killer robots annihilating humanity at about 20%, maybe a little higher, within the next 5 to 10 years.
20%. That's Not exactly reassuring.
No, it isn't. But he also said there's like an 80–90% chance of things turning out incredibly well with prosperity for everyone.
Okay, well, that's a little better. But how do we even begin to think about preventing that 20% from happening?
Well, they made an interesting comparison in the interview. They talked about malware, like viruses and stuff, and how we
Hmm.
already have those causing problems in the digital world.
Right, and bots, too, that do all sorts of things online.
Exactly. So the idea is that as robots become more advanced and connected, we need to be super careful about preventing them from being used for harmful purposes. It's not just digital anymore, it's the real world with real consequences.
So, like, some kind of safeguards or regulations to make sure robots don't go rogue.
Right. They brought up the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, and how they regulate air travel.
Yeah, makes sense. Seems like we're going to need something similar for robots.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But even beyond the whole killer robot scenario, there's another interesting aspect of this conversation: how we view human achievement in a world of super efficient robots. They used Formula One racing as an example.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. So basically, the argument is that part of what makes human competition so exciting is that it's not perfect. There's pressure, there are mistakes, and those things make it compelling to watch.
Precisely. They said if you had robots racing, they would just execute everything perfectly with no drama, no tension.
So who would want to watch that, right?
Yeah.
It's the human element, the struggle, the striving for excellence that makes us connect with athletes and their achievements.
And they even brought up Michael Jordan, the basketball legend.
Yeah, like how he played this incredible game right after his father passed away. It was obviously an incredibly emotional time, but he still managed to perform at such a high level. It's that human element, the ability to overcome adversity and still achieve great things that robots could never replicate.
It speaks to the depth of the human experience. It's not just about efficiency. It's about the emotions, the struggles, the triumphs, all of that. And in a world where robots can do so much, those uniquely human qualities become even more important.
Absolutely. But this leads to another big question that they brought up. Who controls all these robots?
Right. If we're talking about billions of robots capable of doing almost anything, the question of power becomes central.
Because in the wrong hands, that much power could be incredibly dangerous.
They even talked about a scenario where robots are programmed to harm people, but it's done in a way that's hard to trace, or maybe even disguised as a malfunction.
So, like, who's accountable then?
Yeah.
It's a terrifying thought, honestly.
It is, and it raises questions about how society would have to adapt.
Right.
Like maybe community bonds and personal security become even more important in a world with so many powerful robots.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's get practical here. What does all of this mean for, like, our kids and their future careers? Because I'm sure a lot of people listening are wondering that.
Well, the general advice in the interview was that jobs that require uniquely human skills, the things that are hard for robots to replicate, are going to be the most secure.
So things like creativity, emotional intelligence, being able to solve complex problems in unpredictable situations.
Exactly. And they also mentioned technical roles, but focused on the human side of things,
Yeah.
like people who can understand AI ethics or who can maintain and manage complex robotic systems. It's not just about brain smarts anymore. It's about managing the AI and robots that have those brain smarts.
Makes you wonder how education needs to change to prepare kids for this future.
For sure. But it's also mind-blowing to think about how far technology has already come. They gave this amazing example in the interview: computer storage from 1989 compared to today.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Back then, a computer with like 2 megabytes of RAM and a 20 megabyte hard drive cost thousands of dollars.
Like $5,000 to $11,000 back in 1989. That's like $28,000 today when you adjust for inflation. And those computers had basically nothing compared to what we have now.
And now our phones have like a terabyte of storage. It's crazy how fast things change.
It really is. So when you look at that pace of change, Musk's predictions for the next 5 to 10 years, even though they seem wild, maybe they're not so far-fetched.
Okay, so let's do a quick recap for everyone listening. What are the big takeaways from this deep dive into Elon Musk's predictions?
All right, so number one, AI is advancing rapidly and could surpass human intelligence in many areas within the next decade. Two, we could be looking at a future with billions of humanoid robots reshaping our lives in ways we can't even fully imagine yet.
And 3, self-driving cars are coming and coming fast. Musk thinks all cars will be autonomous in 10 years.
And all of this could lead to incredible things, like a world with almost free goods and services. But it also presents some serious challenges and risks. We have to think about how to control these powerful technologies, how to prepare for potential job displacement, and how to prevent misuse.
And as you said earlier, we need to consider what it means to be human in a world with robots can do so much. What are the uniquely human qualities that will become even more valuable?
It's a question worth pondering, because in a future where robots can do so much, those human qualities, those things that make us unique, might be the key to our individual and collective well-being.
A lot to think about, for sure.
Absolutely.